In this video, we're going to be going over setting up our magazines to have some functionality to them. By the end of this, we might have ourselves set up to where a weapon will spawn with a couple magazines already in it, but I'm not entirely sure depending on how long the video is. So from where we left off last time, we have it set up to where we read from our data table and we set the static mesh assigned to the magazine. In this, we want to have a control variable that will be used for the amount of ammo still in the magazine. We want to check if the magazine's in use, similar to how we do our pickups right here. So we have our onramp boolean that's going to be replicated. So if the magazine is assigned to the weapon and stuff like that, we are simply going to hide it as well as disable its collision. This will be on both the server and the clients, so that way they're just kind of vanished, so to speak. I cannot remember if I explained how I wanted the magazines to work in the last video or not, but a quick rundown is it's going to be similar to Call of Duty with just a tad, well, actually very similar to Arma vanilla with no mods. So you'll have your magazines, and pretty much they're going to be, in this case, different than Arma. They're going to be attached to the weapon, not your actual character, at least for right now. So when you reload, it's going to find the magazine that has the highest ammo capacity still in it and throw that into the weapon. So let's say you have 3 magazines, including the one in the weapon. The one in the weapon has 5 rounds, magazine number 2 has 10 rounds, and magazine number 3 has 30 rounds. When you reload, it's going to grab the one that has 30 rounds and throw it into the weapon. It's just going to grab the one with the highest capacity, well, current capacity, or current ammo count, sorry. Let's go ahead and get started. One thing we know we're going to need is to set the magazine's capacity, so we're going to fill the magazine. So under protected, under our mesh component, I'm going to do an int magazine or current ammo. Magazine ammo. And that's going to be set to magazine data, magazine capacity. And in our case, for this, it is 30. Right. Then I want to create 2 functions. One being, it's going to return an integer. I'm going to call it current ammo. It's going to return our magazine's current ammo, and void fire, because I want that to trigger whenever we shoot. So we're going to return current magazine ammo, and for fire, we are simply going to decrement current magazine ammo. So minus minus current magazine ammo. We do need to replicate this to everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy the replication function from pickups real quick and paste it after begin play. And set it to replicate current magazine ammo, as well as I want to set current magazine ammo to equal 0 in the constructor, just so it has something. Now, to use it, we need to include net Unreal Network. Alrighty, so if you see one thing we need to do for our pickups, we do not need to replicate the movement, since they're just going to kind of be spawned, and that's, well, I'm going to probably maybe attach them to the weapon in the future, just so they're kind of following along with it. But we do need to set it to replicate. So in the constructor, we're going to do b replicates equals true. I'm actually going to do that right after we assign the root component. So that way, well, we know it's to replicate. Okay. So this should be okay for now. I want to go ahead and compile and head over to our weapon base. All right. Oh, right. We need to set current magazine ammo to be a U property and replicate it. All right, now let's build. There we go. So now in our weapon base.h, what I mentioned in the last video, I'm pretty sure, was we need to have an array of magazines. So that's just going to simply be, well, literally an array of magazines. So T array, the type is going to be a mag. Well, we need a for declare a magazine base. Going to call this one extra magazines. Then I want to make another one, class a magazine base. Call this one current magazine. Now I'm just going to set current magazine to be a null pointer in the constructor, just so it has, even though it's already kind of doing that, but okay. So we need a way to check if we can fire. So this right here, this fire function runs on the client, as you can see if the role is less than authority, and that's why we're playing the animation. We're just playing on the client, not on the server. So what we need to do is we need to check, well, for starters I want to do this check, obviously, but I want to check if we actually can fire. So what we're going to do is we're going to get access to our current magazine, and then we're going to check things such as its ammo capacity. And if it's, greater than 0, then we can continue and we can fire. Otherwise, we're just going to return the default hit result for the constructor. So if we are not the server, so I can do a quick little check here as well. And current magazine, meaning it's, well, there's a magazine in it, it's not null. Then to clean it up, I'm going to do another if statement. So if current magazine, I got to include it. Public weapons magazine base.h. So if current magazine, come on and tell it sense. There we go. Current, is that public? No, it is protected. That is my fault. So make a new public section. And now we can access it. So current magazine, current ammo is greater than 0. If that is the case, we will perform all this. Otherwise, we return F hit result, and that's all. So I'm going to do the same thing on the server as well. So if the role equals authority and current magazine. So if current magazine, current ammo is greater than 0, we will perform all of this and that. Let's see, we need to move the else out of that loop. So the else is corresponding to this here, meaning we didn't hit anything. Now we just need an else for this statement, in which case we're simply going to return a new F hit result. All right, let's go ahead and build. So once we fire, I want to do this on the client initially just so it's immediate. So I do want to have well, at least eventually, a little shot counter. So that will pretty much display the amount of ammo that's in your current magazine. So if that amount is, let's say, 0 or 10, it's going to display 10. But if we shoot and we subtract from the ammo only on the server, even though that variable is replicated, it is going to take a little bit to show it. So there's going to be a little delay. So we're going to subtract it on the client so it changes it immediately, and then we're going to do it on the server as well. But because we're doing the exact same thing on the server, it's not going to subtract it twice. It's only going to subtract it once, and then it's going to replicate down to the client, which means it's going to essentially stay the same. So what we can do is current magazine, fire, and that's all. Now let's do that one more time on the server at the very end. All right. Trying to think of what else. All right, so just a quick test right now. We shouldn't be able to fire, and it's probably going to crash. Nope. Pick up a weapon. Pick it up. Cannot shoot. So that is good. All right. So let's see here. We need to set up the in use. So if the magazine is picked up, then we cannot. Then it's going to hide itself like we did with our pickups. And same thing for when we go to use it. So I want on the setup magazine, I want to actually have another variable that is going to be true or false. So if the magazine is spawning for the weapon, such as the weapon spawns and we're going to spawn some magazines with it, then we're going to pass in true. If it's just a random spawn around the world, we're going to pass in false because we want it to be visible. So if it's true, we're going to keep it hidden and all that kind of stuff. So bool is for weapon. By default, we're going to pass in false for begin play. Remember, this is for testing. So when we spawn it, we're going to just use normal spawn actor, and then we're going to manually call setup magazine because it's public and pass in the information that we need. And we're going to have to actually do the same thing here. Well, we are going to do the same thing here for our weapon. So from here, let's see. I want to do an authority check. So if role equals role authority, we're going to do something else. We're going to pretty much do what we need to do from this variable here. So I want to have a replicated boolean. So bool is magazine or magazine in use. That'll be a better name. Set it to false by default. And then we need to set it to replicate. This is going to actually be an onramp. So I want to set, let's see, so magazine in use equals is for weapon. Actually, I don't need to do that necessarily in here. All right, so I want to do something a little different. This can actually dictate whether or not we hide it. So if is for, well, actually no. We're literally just going to do this because this is for setting it up. So I'm going to copy our onramp function and pass it in. Well, we're going to use it for our setup magazine. So if it is for the weapon, meaning we want it to be, hidden, no collision or anything like that, because it's already in use, we want to set it hidden in game to true, which is going to be is for the weapon, and we want to disable its collision. So that set actor enable collision, it's going to be the opposite. So if it's true, meaning it's for the weapon, this is going to be false right here. So we can go ahead and build. And now we need to set up an onramp for magazine in use. So I want to make it under protected. Remember, it's got to be a U function. Do void onrep. What to call it? Magazine in use. We're going to change replicated to replicated or replicate using equals onrep magazine in use. Oh, wait, replicated using. Alrighty. Let's see here. Here's where we're going to essentially do the same thing. So we're going to hide it or show it based off of whether or not the magazine is in use. So now we just need a way to check it. So I'm going to make a new function, call it pickup. So void pickup. So in pickup, we're going to do an authority check. So if role equals role authority, meaning we're on the server, we are going to toggle that boolean. So magazine in use equals true. And then we want to call this on the server, so that way the server knows where there's no collision there. So we're going to do what we're going to call the onrep. So onrep magazine in use. All right, let's go ahead and build. We're set to replicate and everything. And this we should be pretty much set up here. Okay, so let's step back a second and think. Okay, let's go ahead and set up the pickup for our magazine. So on our survival character, let's go ahead and include public weapons magazine base.h. And why is that a capital U? Okay. I'm gonna just move it right there for make it look a little cleaner. Let's see, where's that item? Or our interact. Here we are. So we're doing else if cast a magazine base from actor. We're going to call server interact. In our server interact, we're doing else if a magazine base magazine equals the cast. And we're going to call magazine pickup. And that's going to call our pickup function, which will toggle our replicated using Boolean, as well as call our onramp function on the server. So I want to do a quick little log. Picking up magazine and build. All right, let's see if we can pick it up. Might be a pain. All right, picking up magazine. All right, I can walk through it on the client so the server thinks it's not there, I think. So let's test it by running on the server. An easier way to pick this up. All right, it's not letting me pick it up. I haven't actually tested. Can I pick up items on the server? No. All right, so we gotta test this on the client. All right, so we're gonna have the server here looking at the magazine. There it is. And then the client pick it up. All right, you're not letting me pick it up at all on the client. All right, I feel like this is probably just gonna be one of those stupid issues. Yeah, pick it up. Pick up the magazine. We can walk through it on the client. So there's something going on there. So let's look at our magazine class. Let's see. Replication. For some reason, replicates is set to false. So we're going to set it to true. Compile and save. Not exactly sure why that was set to false. All right, gotta pick it up. All right, now I can't seem to pick you up at all now. Or the weapon. That is really strange. Let's just try relaunching it. And see what happens. All right, that is really strange. Let's see, magazine base. I'm gonna lower it a bit. No options for that replication. Right, out of curiosity, let's see if we check it to always relevant and see what happens. Cannot seem to pick it up. Right, but I can pick up. And just changing that back. Break it. Well, I can pick up the weapon again. That makes literally no sense. Yeah, it's not set to replicate for the weapon. let's compare real quick. So for our weapon base, let's just set it to not replicate in the constructor, and we'll do it directly in Blueprint and see if that solves it. All right. Yep. Alrighty. Well, that is broken. It's not even printing it out. So let's try printing it out on the client just to make sure that the client sees that we're hitting it. And we're going to go from there. Let's see. Wait, was this derived from anything? No, just an actor. All right. Pick up magazine client, pick up magazine server. All right. So we know that it's recognizing on the client and the server. Now let's go to where we call our pickup, toggling that. Where's our onramp? Here it is. Let's print out the login here. It's going to be our onramp function. All right, that would be from the server. Oh, I almost forgot. Now we got to set it to replicate. I didn't think about that. If I can hit it. All right, there we go. Picking up magazine, client, server, and then 2 onramp function calls for 1 press. And the magazine is gone. Okay. So what the issue ended up being, for whatever reason, once we compiled, again, it fixed it. I guess it was just one of those weird UE4 issues. But it's set to replicate, so we're good there. Now by default, I want to try to set to replicate again. Because I want that to be its default value without having to actually set it in Blueprint. All right, so now that's normal by default. Let's check and make sure it works again. Pick it up, good to go, no collisions. Let's just triple check with 2 clients. Client 2. Pick it up. It's gone on client 1 and 2. And we can still pick up weapons. All right, cannot pick that up. What in the world is going on? Let's try printing out a log that we are picking up a weapon on the server. All right, picked up the weapon. and we picked up the magazine. And let's triple check that they're set up that way on the client too, and they are. Okay, so I guess I'm just having some weird UE4 bugs real quick. Alright, so I'm going to go through and reiterate what all we've done real quick. I want to do one more test. So I want to pass in true to set up magazine and make sure it handles it accordingly. Alright, so the magazine should be hidden, which it is. No collision, nothing. Okay, just reset it back to false. So let's explain what we've done so far. So we have added two replicated booleans, one that pertains to the current amount of ammo in our magazine, which by default we are setting to the magazine capacity that we set in the data table, and we are setting a replicated boolean that fires an onramp event whenever it changes. So I'm going to call it magazine in use. So when the the magazine spawns and the user presses E on it to pick it up, we toggle the magazine in use boolean on the server here. This will trigger down and make it run on all clients. So I'm going to delete the onramp, the UE log, and then we call it on the server, so the server runs it. We have also set up three functions, one being pickup, which is obvious, one that returns the current amount of ammo, and one that we call whenever we fire the weapon. So we use current ammo and fire in the weapon class. So first we check if the magazine is valid that's in the weapon. Then we check and get the current amount of ammo. So if the current amount of ammo in the magazine is greater than 0, we will fire the weapon, in which case we call fire. Otherwise, we'll just return an empty hit result. So I can actually do a check here and just make sure the passed in hit result is not just an empty hit result, which I'll do in a future video, just to save any of these conditions from running. But we do the exact same thing again on the server. We check if it is greater than 0, that amount of ammo that's in the magazine, and if it is, we fire. Otherwise, return an empty hit result. So the reason we're doing this on the client, what we're calling fire on the client, which subtracts 1 from the magazine, is for our ammo counter. So when we fire on the client, we want it to be just instant. So we go from, let's say, 30, we fire, it goes immediately to 29, faster than we can, well, see in our head, kind of. But so if we did this strictly on the server using the replicated variable, then we would end up having, what's it called? We would have like a little bit of a delay from the latency from the server changing the variable and that change being replicated down to the clients. So that's why we're doing it on the client first. Then we make our server call. Well, we pass in the hit result to the server we do that on the character, but we pass in the hit result from fire to this function fire that takes in a hit result on the server, in which it also does the exact same thing. It just decrements it. So starting from 30, we fire on the client. Our magazine's now at 29 on the client. We pass in the hit result to the server, do our checking and stuff like that, and then we change the magazine from from 30 to 29 on the server. And because we're changing it, it's going to replicate down to us, but we've already made that change, so it doesn't matter. It's just an instant change. And also being set on the server as well, just to correct it in case of any cheating or anything like that, like if we try to set it above 30 and all that kind of stuff. So we can do checks for the magazines for the like whenever we reload and stuff like that to see if like a magazine is above 30, and if that is the case, then we disconnect that person from the server and all that kind of stuff just for like little cheap protections. But that's pretty much all we've done so far. In the next video, we will actually spawn a couple magazines with the weapon. So I think what we're going to do is since we have let me find the data table for the magazine and the weapon. So here we have compatible weapons. For this magazine, I just have one element in the array, just AR-15. And you can see it's the same as the weapon name, AR-15. So what we're going to do is when we spawn the weapon in setup weapon, I'm going to have it spawn a couple magazines alongside with it. So the way we're going to get that is we're going to do simply weapon data. You'll see here we have weapon name being AR-15. So we're going to use spawn actor. We're going to spawn a magazine base. We're going to call setup magazine. We're going to pass in AR-15 or the weapon name to it. And then we're going to pass in true because it is for the weapon, meaning by default it's going to be hidden, but it's also going to have like the static mesh and the ammo capacity that the magazine that the magazine has for that weapon. Well, actually, I'm going to have to make a change and call it AR-15 mag or something like that. So we'll probably add another element maybe to the weapon data just to have like a list of compatible magazines, and we'll just randomly select from it and pass it in. So that way it's a little different. Something like that. We'll see. So I will see you in the next one when we actually get to doing something interesting with this.